It's often said that the eyes are the doors to the souls. But in death, your eyes often go back to things that you long lost and forgotten. Memories that are awakened, that you left deep in your soul, like a box of photos discarded on a shelf collecting dust. Cassidy's eyes were ocean blue, so blue you could almost hear the crashing of waves and call of seagulls. For Cassidy, her eyes took her back to a holiday along the Isle of Wight, looking out at the sea, looking out to the very edge, desperate to reach out and run away and never return. Her brother at her side as they walked across the beach, all while their world behind them collapsing into rampant but familiar argument of words which stabbed through her heart like a billion saber-toothed sharp knives. Cassidy was on the brink, between life and death. On one side, the call of seagulls lured her, the sun and her wish for a life where she'd lived in blissful ignorance of the challenges of life. On the other side, a new chance, a chance to fight. Although hard and would knock you down, there was always a chance. That hope of a better life just round the corner. Cassidy chose to run towards hope. After all, she'd been chasing it all her life, and she wasn't about to stop now. Cassidy felt a breath of life awaken her. Now, her eyes showed her the mirror-like appearance of her duplicate. Her eyes, now fiercer than ever, this sent a shiver down her duplicate's back as it throttled her. Then Cassidy remembered, if she was an exact duplicate, then she would have the same weaknesses too. So she put immense pressure on the hand which she had scalded that morning by her, and dug her fingernails right into the area of her arm which she sliced open on the ceramic. This caused her duplicate to lose their grip on Cassidy. Cassidy felt a rush of oxygen, which she used as power to kick right into the centre of their face, kicking them straight out. Cassidy went down to check if the doctor was okay. She had no idea who they were or how they got there, but they were cold. Cassidy didn't know what to do. So she checked for a pulse. It wasn't possible. They had two separate pulses, both a bit thruddy, but seemed steady. Cassidy looked around. She noticed that Rani was nowhere to be seen. "Rani!" she called out. "Where are you?" There was no response. Cassidy was starting to feel anxious. She'd never felt so isolated in all her life. Then suddenly, as if they could sense the pain, the doctor awoke. Cassidy felt a sense of relief as life bled into the doctor's cheeks once again. "Hello there," they said bluntly. "And who might you be?" Cassidy was a bit starstruck, not entirely sure how to respond. "I'm Cassidy," she replied. "I think." "You think?" "Well, yes, that's my name," she explained. "What's yours?" "The doctor," they would continue to reply in the same blunt tone, as if this fact was more obvious than the answer to 1 + 1. "Just the doctor?" "Yeah." "But Doctor Who?" Cassidy inquired, not realising just how big a question that was to ask. "Now that's the $1,000,000 question," replied the doctor as they sat up against the wall. "Now, based on this wall, I'd say we're some 50 metres below the River Tyne, which puts us under Newcastle city centre, right?" "Yeah, how did you know that?" Cassidy asked. "A magician never reveals their secrets," the doctor replied, putting their finger to their nose. "Not to mention your Geordie accent." "Well, I guess that makes sense. If you don't mind me asking, who are you and why are you here?" she asked in an agitated, slightly unnerved tone. The doctor had their hand on their head. "You know, my head has never felt so bare. I really must get a new hat. I love a good hat. You know what would be great? One of those massive hats with feathers and fruit. Oh, God, I'm hungry. I don't think I've felt hungry in a while. I don't suppose you have any fruit on you?" Now, the idea in my mind is sort of like orange, apple. "I know! Banana," they said with an intense leaning right into Cassidy's face. "Why a banana in particular?" Cassidy said with a raised eyebrow and a smirk. "Bananas are good," they said as they stood up. "Look, are you okay?" Cassidy asked. "What would make you say that?" "I have my reasons," Cassidy replied sarcastically. The doctor noticed that Cassidy was clutching onto the sonic screwdriver in her pocket. "What's that you got there?" they inquired. "Oh, this?" said Cassidy, removing the sonic screwdriver from her pocket. "Oh, I don't know, I just sort of found it outside. I just thought it was a piece of junk," she said, handing it over to the doctor. "It's not important, is it?" she asked. The doctor clutched it for a while. They knew it had significance, but they couldn't remember why. It was like a faded memory or a dream, a sort of vacant memory of who they had been, but a stronger, more compelling pull into the future. It was like a tug of war in their mind, and they felt as if they were slowly being pulled apart. The doctor could sense memories of running up and down corridors and fighting monsters, but the focus was blurred and decaying. They didn't know who they were. They were like an alien to their own body, unable to remember anything. The doctor applied a soft pressure to the slider button on the handle, and the sonic blew up the entire room, while a soft hum played. While Gallifreyan language or something lined the walls, like projections. It was unlike anything Cassidy had ever seen. The symbols, the light, it was beautiful, she thought to herself. "What is it?" "It's who I am," the doctor replied, looking up. Soon distant voices could be heard, old friends and faces of the doctor. Their granddaughter Susan, Ian, Barbara, Vicky, Joe Grant, the Brigadier, Sarah Jane, Romana, all smiling down on them. "There must be no regrets, no tears or anxieties. You must go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me I am not mistaken in mind," said one echo of the doctor. "When I say run, run like a rabbit," said another. Then a swirl of purple light swirled as the stars glistened and passed them by. The grind of lost, forgotten engines travelling by. The echoes returned. "Would you like a jelly, baby?" said a grinning buffoon. "Reverse the polarity of the neutron flow," said a dandy in a sharp dinner suit. "Braveheart," said a youthful blonde cricketer. "An alien spy," replied a gloriously dressed, curled Time Lord with a fine brow. "Unlimited rice pudding," said a short, stumpy wizard of a Time Lord. Then reds and dark nebulas took over as a dark, menacing presence arrived. Centuries of war and destruction consumed all light. Daleks, Cybermen, Yeti, Zygons, Weeping Angels, and even the K-1 robot, along with more indescribable terrors that the Doctor had faced over their many years. A curled, dapper Time Lord appeared. They were yelling, "Shoes! They fit perfectly!" Then the darkness revealed itself again. They saw children burning and soldiers watching in an unending bitter war between the Time Lords and the Daleks. An older Doctor, wearied by centuries of fighting, walked shamefully towards them. "Great men are forged in fire. It is the privilege of lesser men to light the flame." Then a sparkle of hope appeared, as a younger northern Time Lord with pointy ears popped up and simply said, "Run." Then there was a sorrowful affair, as on the beach the Doctor said goodbye to Rose. Then the pain of losing Amy and Rory consumed them. Cassidy began to notice that the memories were enveloping the Doctor, almost as if they were part of them. A Scot with really intense eyebrows proclaimed, "I will not change!" before another youthful blonde, also confused, came up to the Doctor and said, "I'm the Doctor. When people need help, I never refuse." Before all the future and past incarnations of the Doctor spoke in indistinguishable ramblings, before coercing together and consuming the Doctor in one big explosion of stars, light and time, all in one box which hurtled towards them. The lights faded away, and they were back in the tunnel again. "All of that? That's you?" Cassidy asked in awe of what she'd just seen. The Doctor nodded. "It's who I'm supposed to be. But it's all just words. It's nothing but who I really am, deep down. I have to discover what it means to be me, to be my version of the Doctor. And that's something my memories will never give me," they said sorrowfully. Cassidy wasn't sure what to think. She'd just seen a billion lives and a universe of unimaginable adventure, yet also pain and despair. She wasn't entirely sure how to comprehend it. Whatever it meant, this Doctor, whoever they are, they clearly needed her. The sonic began to beep ferociously. "Oh, that's worrying," the doctor said, reading the results on their sonic. "What is it?" said Cassidy, leaning in to see what it was, even though she just had no idea what it meant. "I'm detecting a dangerous energy source," explained the doctor, turning round to face the wall. "And whatever it is, it's behind that wall." Suddenly, a door starting to emerge, cobbling itself together from goo on the wall. It looked like it was made of all kinds of organs, flesh, and even a bit of alien plant life thrown in there. "Shall we?" asked the doctor as they opened the door for Cassidy. "Let's," she replied, as they climbed through the door with a smile, followed on by the doctor. Inside was a dimly lit hatchery. The room followed the same organic mix of slabs and alien flesh and plant life. What little light there was dark, blood red, foreboding colour, which seeped into the corners like an infestation of maggots. All around the room were oval-shaped pods. Cassidy looked into one of them and noticed more alien goo, only its form was fluctuating between goo and an alien creature and a familiar human form. The creature was a large, muscular beast with terrifying eyes which looked like they had been carved deep into their flesh. Their skin was the same blood-red tone as the light, only it seemed deeper and looked almost like raw human skin. The goo seemed to seep in and out of the creature's pores like a deadly infection. The creature's pores only grew wider and wider and almost looked like an octopus sucker. That was when the creature turned back into a human. Cassidy realised why they'd looked so familiar to her. It was Joe Biden, the President of the United States of America. Cassidy looked into another pod. It was Boris Johnson. In another, Angela Merkel. In every pod was a major world leader. But what could this mean, Cassidy thought. The doctor used their sonic screwdriver to scan the entire circumference of the hatchery. They looked at their readings. "This whole hatchery goes on for miles," they said, reading the results to Cassidy. "But that would mean this would cover the entirety of Newcastle," Cassidy stated. "Well, a bit bigger than that. But I don't think we're underneath Newcastle anymore," they explained. "Well, actually, it's a bit more complicated than that. We are and we aren't. This whole space is dimensionally transcendental. And that means, well, in short, the room we walked into is bigger on the inside," the doctor explained to an incredibly confused Cassidy, who looked as though she'd been asked to solve the most complicated math sum in history. "If I had my ship, I could show you a good example. Sadly, I have no idea where it is," they said. Then they walked into what looked like an archway, which led to an alcove. The doctor curiously walked through, followed by Cassidy. The alcove had a railing around it and a staircase which looked to lead to a rather expansive chasm, stacked up with the creature's pods. They were lined up like products on a conveyor belt, ready to be shipped across the world. The doctor and Cassidy stood in awe of their view. "There must be thousands of people here," Cassidy stated. "They're not people. They're zygons." "And what are zygons?" Cassidy asked to the doctor astutely. "Zygons are a race of alien shapeshifters, and their planet was destroyed in war. So they came to Earth seeking to take over the planet before an agreement was reached between the humans and the Zygons, allowing them to seek asylum," the doctor explained. "But something must have gone wrong. Whatever this isn't the Zygon style at all," they said with a worrying expression. This was when Cassidy spotted Rani on the floor. She looked to be unconscious. Cassidy ran to her aid. She first checked her pulse. It was beating steadily. "She's alive," Cassidy called out to the doctor. "That's some good news. But now we need to get down to business," the doctor stated, with a great sense of urgency, as they climbed down the stairway. As they turned round the corner, they found a worn-down police box, looking derelict and decrepit, abandoned like a house on the edge of a street. The doctor could sense the great presence of the police box, like it was a lost friend who had been reunited after many centuries. They ran their hands down the aged and crooked wood. "Who am I?" they asked the machine. The TARDIS lit up with a soft, majestic hum, unlike anything in the universe. The doctor felt the last of their regeneration energy expel from their body. Their eyes glowed a dazzling gold colour. That was when they knew. They knew what it truly meant to be the doctor. The compassion, the hope, the bravery, and the fury of the Time Lord as they realised the TARDIS was slowly moving towards its death. Rani had awakened. "What did I miss?" she said with a devious smile, looking up at Cassidy. "You missed a lot," she said, glad to see Rani was awake again. "I think I found Sarah Jane's doctor." "Oh, okay," Rani replied with a slightly off expression. Cassidy was starting to wonder if something was wrong with Rani. She quickly dismissed these thoughts, thinking she was bound to be a bit off, as clearly she'd had quite the blow to the face. She thought, noticing a rather large red circular spot on her head. Rani got up and looked around, almost like a snake in a bird's nest, slithering and examining each pod. This is when Cassidy's attention was drawn to one pod in particular. There was something drawing her towards it. The face, the person inside, although blurred out of view, seemed familiar. Then Cassie's attention was grabbed by a sudden reoccurrence of the noise of the door, sealing itself. Elsewhere, the Doctor had also noticed this noise, although heavily distracted by a cable which they had noticed exiting from the TARDIS doors and up the walls leading to a central power duct directly above them, which all the pods were connected to. This was when they noticed the TARDIS was dying slowly after being drained like a victim from a lustful vampire. If the Doctor had ever had a friend they'd ripped apart the universe for, it was the TARDIS. The fury intoxicated the Doctor, their hearts pumping ferociously. The Doctor noticed that on the side panel of one of the pods, there was a zygon gun. They removed it and set the trigger to kill. Cassidy moved towards the door, noticing that it was now locked. Then, also realising that her zygon duplicate was likely the one to seal them in, which meant that somewhere her duplicate was crawling around, ready to attack. Cassidy walked around cautiously, hearing a scuttling all around her. She turned round, and there the zygon creature was, right in front of her face, dribbling right down her neck. "Oh shit," she said before the zygon knocked her unconscious and carried her and Rani away. The Doctor, now carrying the gun, quickly ran upstairs to find Cassidy. They were ready to wage war against the creatures that had slowly been killing the TARDIS. When they found no one, they knew something had gone wrong. Very wrong. Then, suddenly, if out of nowhere, a sour, wet voice played over the intercom. "Doctor, lay down your weapons. We have your friends. If you do not comply, we will destroy them," the creature commanded. "Oh yeah," the Doctor said, putting up their gun and pointing it at one of the pods. "Well, if you want to deal in ultimatums," they replied, firing a powerful bolt of energy at the pod containing Boris Johnson's duplicate. This caused the pod to explode violently, like an egg smashing onto the floor, killing the zygon creature within, which lay in a puddle of its own goo before slowly disintegrating into goo itself. "How many pods will it take before you release my friends, I wonder?" they stated in a rather menacing tone of voice. "They will die, Doctor," the creature replied, starting to get weary of the Doctor's now nonchalant attitude towards killing the entire zygon hatchery. "And so will your very ugly-looking homies," replied the Doctor. "Homies? Yeah, maybe not. How about planet-threatening army? You see, we appear to have reached an impasse. Can we come to an agreement?" suggested the Doctor, in a way that made them look like an overacting theatre actor playing to a crowd. The zygon decided to transmit the Doctor down to the lower levels, where it was keeping Cassidy and Rani captive. The Doctor had barely flinched. They looked ready for a confrontation with the creature. Cassidy and Rani were chained to the wall and were sitting on the floor with their hands in shackles above them. "So, Doctor, what do you make of my ultimatum now?" the creature said with a silvery smile, as they made it abundantly clear to the Doctor. "Whatever you've done, whatever your plan is, you better start packing," they threatened. "Such bold words for one who no longer has the advantage in this ordeal, Doctor," smiled the zygon maliciously. "I see you have changed your face, but it seems your incomprehensible compassion remains the same. Your eyes, though, they are filled with bloodlust. Would you do it?" said the creature, looking down at the gun still in their hand. "You know, I really don't think you could," the slithering tongue said, while circling around the Doctor. The Doctor pulled up the gun to the zygon's huge, bulbous head. "There you are, the real Time Lord, just like the rest of the zygon grinned. "No, You can't, Cassidy intervened. The doctor looked at Cassidy as she looked deep into them disapprovingly. This isn't the way. You don't need to use violence. It should never be an option. Whatever they've done, whatever their plan is, if you pull that trigger, it will make you just as bad as them. Use your mind. That's the only weapon you need. The doctor reflected on everything they'd learned about being the doctor. The anger was like fire, but it was weak and feeble compared to the compassion and kindness they felt. In the end, it was always kindness that won all. I don't know who I am, or what I'm meant to be, the doctor stated, quivering over the trigger. Cassidy smiled. Then we'll discover it together. The doctor smiled back and threw over the sonic screwdriver to Cassidy, who released herself from Rani, and the doctor lowered the gun. You win, they said, as a sudden rumble from above. What is happening? The zygon asked desperately as the ground began to shake. Your fault, really. You used my TARDIS to power your hatchery. And, well, you made her mad. And when she gets mad, she tends to get a tad exploding, the doctor said with a massive grin, as the ground began to shake even more intensely. In short, they continued, run. Out of nowhere, emergency alarms began to ring like never before, and lights flashed everywhere as the infrastructure rapidly began to collapse. The doctor and Cassidy and Rani all ran for their lives, while massive chunks of the ceilings collapsed upon the zygon. Cassidy called out after the doctor. We should help them, she suggested. Therefore, the doctor ran back with Cassidy. However, Rani went on ahead, locking them inside to suffer their fate. Good luck, humans, she malevolently said before transforming back into a zygon creature to make her escape. Doctor! Cassidy called out, noticing they'd been shut in. However, they were too busy to help the zygon. Quickly, more and more, the rock was falling around them. Cassidy found lying under a rock the real Rani. She was sure about it this time, she hoped. She was unconscious and needed urgent help. She seemed they were too late. The whole stability of the hatchery was collapsing. Was this the end, Cassidy thought, holding on to Rani while the doctor moved desperately to try and open the sealed door. Cassidy closed her eyes again. Instead of hearing the noise of the seaside, she heard a majestic engine grinding in and out of reality, making an ancient warp noise. Then flashes of light filled the room, spreading hope into every corner of the tunnel. It was the TARDIS. She was alive. Then, all of a sudden, the entire hatchery blew up, like a match, but 1,000,000 times bigger. Cassidy had passed out. The rest of what happened was blurred out of her vision, but she remembered awakening in a large console room. This room seemed alive with the bustling of energy flowing from circuit to circuit, yet it was far more than a machine. It was alive. In the centre was the central control column, with a child's dream quantity of buttons and switches to flick. An almost crystalline pillar ran through it. It glowed a deep purple colour before reaching into the cracked and porcelain lid. All around she found clock faces, almost like roundels in the walls, which were made of varnished wood. The clock seemed to tell the time for multiple different time zones. One read Versailles 1879, and another read Dixa Papapella 2345. At the top of the TARDIS, there was a balcony with shelves, books, chalkboards, and all traditional-looking theatre curtains, which were stained a rose-red colour. It seemed there were cogs and patterns of clocks engraved onto the floor, and at the centre there was a large omega symbol, with a crack splitting straight through it like a fractured egg. Cassie looked next to her at Rani, who was there. She too was beginning to wake up. Where were they, she thought. She got up and nosed about, looking for the doctor and that zygon creature. That's when the doctor approached her from behind. Are you looking for me? Possibly, she said, turning round to face them. I see you survived. She looked down at the doctor from head to toe. They were now in a completely different look. They looked much better on them than the baggy clothes they had been wearing previously. They were quite tight-fitting and made the doctor look a bit like a dandy, with frilly cuffs and a long black overcoat decorated with bronze buttons and purple lining. They were now wearing white shirt with huge collars which stuck around the lapels of the overcoat. They had question marks on both sides embroidered in a silky gold string. They even had a lilac-coloured cravat and patterns of flowers from alien worlds printed on it. They wore a waistcoat with patterns of clocks printed onto a greenish-gold colour. They had bulky yet airy trousers tucked into much-aged adventurers' boots, not too dissimilar from Cassidy's own choice of footwear. To top it all off, they wore a large feather-decorated hat, which concealed their face almost entirely, except for the Doctor's distinctive smile, overall creating a look which seemed neither masculine or feminine. "I see you had time to get yourself some wicked new threads, though," Cassidy said with a smile. Rani had fully got up and came to join them. "If you don't mind me asking," she said in between the yawn, "are we dead?" "Not this time," the Doctor replied with a light chuckle. "Where are we then?" Rani inquired. "On the TARDIS." "But hang on, you said the TARDIS blew up," Cassidy stated before being silenced by the Doctor. "Did I? Well, you see, the thing about the TARDIS is she's a tough old girl," they said before moving on to the controls to set the coordinates. "What happened to the Zygons?" Cassidy asked, worried that the Doctor had let them all die. The Doctor looked down in shame. "I couldn't save them," they said, avoiding eye contact with Cassidy, who had moved closer towards them. "You're right, I shouldn't have gone that far. I was able to save one, though, the one who threatened us. I took them to a friend of mine in Wales who's been handling the Zygon Earth integration policy. You did your best in the end. That's what matters," she said, comforting the Doctor, seeing the pain in their eyes. The Doctor looked into Cassidy's eyes and quickly moved on to another panel of the console. "Now! You've got a decision to make," the Doctor prompted to Cassidy and Rani. "Oh, and what's that?" Rani asked. "Well, I can take you home, or we can go anywhere in the entire universe. Any when to. Aliens, demons, there'll be lots of danger, of course, too," said the Doctor, almost as if they were trying to sell a TV show to a TV executive. "That's all very well, but I got grounded by the Jadoon, so as much as I'd love to stay, I don't really want them on my back again," Rani said, thinking of the time she'd ended up having to lug a Jadoon captain around Ealing to stop Androvax. "And what about you?" she asked the Doctor, turning to look at Cassidy again. Cassidy paused for a moment as she considered the pain of the last few years of her life. All the missed rent payments, the day she was kicked out, and her brother Eric, of course. She knew already what her answer would be. But she had to think of everything she was leaving behind. She looked to Rani. "Should I? It's your decision. I'll be here waiting for you. Your life, everything, will all still be here. A very old friend on Earth told me that life on Earth can be an adventure too. You just need to know where to look. Well, here it is. The greatest adventure you'll ever live." Rani took off the scanner device and took the lipstick out of her pocket. "Here. I'd always hoped that the Doctor would come back for her one day. For one last trip. If you take these," she said, handing them to Cassidy, "you'll make her wish come true. Go do her proud. Go make Sarah Jane Smith proud for me," she said through tears of both joy and sorrow. Cassidy leaned in to give Rani a hug as she accepted the lipstick and the watch. "I'll do my best," she said, crying with Cassidy. "I'll take that as a yes, then," the Doctor intervened. Cassidy smiled through tears streaming down her face. Yes it is. But first," she said, wiping away her tears, "let's get Rani home." Just as she said that, the TARDIS engines ground to a halt with a massive thud. "Newcastle, 31st of May, 2021. It's all yours," the Doctor stated, Rani said as her farewells before exiting the TARDIS and leaving the Doctor and Cassidy alone. "Now, where do you want to start?" the Doctor asked. "Ooh, I don't know. Let's go where the universe takes us. Let's go into the unexpected," Cassidy said with a smile as the Doctor flicked a switch, sending them across the time vortex and into the unknown.